Wise Child by Monica Furlong, Chapter 7, The Attic. I woke up the next morning knowing that something extraordinary had happened and saw Juniper smiling in a chair beside the bed. "Well," she said. "Well," I said. "I should stay in bed for a bit if I were you. You may feel a bit dizzy if you try to get up." "I'm hungry." "Good. You shall have your breakfast right away." "Where's Uni?" "Oh, she's gone." "That was a short visit." "She did what she came to do." It was only after I'd eaten my breakfast gruel and had slept a bit more that I dared ask Juniper, "What happened?" "You tell me," she said, "then I will tell you what I know." "It seemed to me that the roof was rolled back and that I flew. Only when I came to myself downstairs I wondered if I had dreamed it, and it hadn't really happened at all." "Never mind about that now," she said. "What happened when you flew?" "I flew like anything. It was a lovely feeling. I managed to sit on the broom, with Pearl sitting on the handle in front of me, and we flew first all over the meadow and Cormac's house, then back here again. The roof was on again by now, and over the village and the sea and the mainland, and we came to mountain peaks and forests, and what I think was the Great Glen, and then over the sea again." Juniper was listening with great concentration. "Yes?" "The broomstick came down on an island. It was at the foot of an avenue of enormous stones. Everything was, oh, so beautiful. Partly it made me feel very little, but partly it made me feel, sort of part of it all. I passed through one stone circle, then another, with Pearl walking in front of me, and then I came to a tiny circle with an altar in the middle of it. Then I asked the altar what it wanted of me 3 times. I walked around it with her shins. There was no answer, and then the broomstick came rushing up the avenue to fetch me, and I came away." Juniper had looked very thoughtful through this long recital. "What does it mean?" I asked her, propped up on my elbow on the bed. Even that slight movement made my head buzz in a funny way, so I soon lay down again. "It was a way of seeing if you are one of us." "One of you and Uni? You mean a witch?" "That's just a vulgar word for it. That can mean all kinds of things. The word we use is Doran." Juniper went on to explain that the word Doran comes from our Gaelic word Doris, an entrance or way. In the English have a word very like it. It was someone who has found a way into seeing or perceiving. "Seeing or perceiving what?" Juniper hesitated. "The energy," she said at last. "The pattern." I did not know what she meant, but I knew what interested me. "Am I a Doran then?" I asked breathlessly. "You could be," she said. "You may be one day if various things work out that way." "So what does a Doran do then?" "Some of us do healing things like me and my herbs. Some of us sing or write poetry or make beautiful things. Some don't do anything at all. They often stay in one place. They just know." "Know what?" "How things are," said Juniper mysteriously. I didn't like it much last night," I said, changing the subject. "To start with, that is. I hated all that stuff with the ointment, and you wouldn't let me have any supper, and Uni was all cross and bossy." "It was the only way to do it, Wise Child. I couldn't explain any of it to you in advance. Otherwise you would be expecting things instead of finding them out for yourself. And you know how I hate that. And you had to do it fasting, or you would have felt much iller than you did. All the same," she grinned, "I nearly lost my nerve. If Uni hadn't been here, I probably wouldn't have. That's why she came." "I'm glad she did then. The frightening bit was that I thought you had turned against me." "Yes, that was the hardest thing, for me too." I was thoughtful for a while. "Did Uni ever give you a test like that?" "Of course. We were in Brittany at the time. I flew farther than you. I flew all the way here. That's how I knew that one day this would be where I would live and work. And Uni too once went through that test when she was a little girl in Cornwall. Every Doran has gone through it." "But it might not have worked." "No, you might have sat there, getting crosser and crosser and crosser, hating me more and more." "But you thought I would fly?" "Yes, I had that sort of feeling about you. A feeling that the cards confirmed. By the way, the first time I ever saw you, just as Uni had the feeling the first time she ever saw me, playing in the sea in Cornwall, you need to be quite sure, you see. Flying is the infallible test. That you will become a Doran. No, only that you have it in you to become one. You may decide later that you don't want to, or circumstances may somehow prevent you. What circumstances? Things happen, said Juniper. And if I decide to become one, then will I end up living on that island? A Brogar? Not necessarily. That's just an indication that that is a place of great importance in your life. We don't yet know in what way. Well, I think I'll decide to become a Doran now. You can't. You just have to wait and see. I felt very tired that day after all the excitement of flying. When I sat up, the room spun around me, and my legs, as they touched the floor, felt as if they were made of sponge. By crawling on my hands and knees, I reached the chair where my clothes were laid out, and without attempting to stand up again, I put them on. I pulled myself into a standing position with the help of the chair, groped my way to the door, trying to ignore the way the floor rose and fell like the deck of a ship, and outside the door I once again crawled to the head of the stairs. There was only one way to negotiate the stairs, and that was to turn around and go down them backward like a tiny child, feeling for them with my feet. When I got to the bottom, I found Juniper watching this performance sympathetically. The first day's the worst, she said. Tomorrow you will feel a lot better. And the day after, as if nothing unusual had happened to you, she gave me her arm to help me to my chair, which felt like a safe anchorage. I was all right as long as I kept perfectly still, but any movement, however slight, started the horrible feeling of vertigo. It was going to be a long, boring day. My head ached, and I suddenly felt so tired with my body that I wiped away a tear. Juniper noticed at once. "Could you bear a potion?" she asked. "If I gave you some of my best tea afterward to take away the taste, it would make you feel a lot better." I nodded miserably, a movement which started the buzzing and vertigo again. She was right, though. The potion took the headache away, and the tea took away the awful taste of it. But I was still too dizzy to stand up. Juniper stopped work early that day, took me on her lap, and sang to me. I felt less like a future Doran then, like a very little girl who needed to be cuddled. You know, when I left this room and started to fly, it was funny that I didn't seem to have the ointment on me anymore, though as soon as I got back, there it was again. Did I really fly or not? Could you and Uni see me while I was gone? Really, Juniper said, smiling. Didn't I tell you that there were many kinds of reality? When the ointment began to have an effect on you, you were in one kind of reality and Uni and I were in another. So yes, we could see you here while you were on the trip. So it wasn't real, I said, disappointed. Remember how you felt up there in the sky, or walking up the stone avenue, or standing in front of the altar? Was that any less real than sitting here now and talking? Maybe more real, I said. Certainly more interesting. Well, there, she said. By the time I woke up the next morning, I was already a lot better. Though once again, Juniper did not send Pearl to wake me, and I slept late. I no longer felt tired, and when I got out of bed and walked experimentally around the room, I was still a bit dizzy, but the floor only rocked a little, as if the rough sea beneath it had subsided. I could feel an idea bubbling away energetically at the back of my mind, and at first I could not imagine what it was. Something about life with Juniper had encouraged me to notice ideas floating around in the back of my mind, like, as she said, fishes swimming past you if you were in a house under the sea. Finally I captured the swimming fish. What I suddenly understood was that it was time to go and look at Juniper's attic. I did not even pause to get dressed, but threw a blanket around my shoulders, and with one or two pauses to steady my wobbling footsteps, I made my way to the attic stairs and toward the little ivory handle that had drawn me from the first day. And that's where we'll pause.